You can now get 2 free audiobook downloads and a 30-day free trial at audible.bogosity.tv. Your choice from the world's largest selection of over 180,000 digital audiobooks and spoken word content for your iOS or Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audible.bogosity.tv now. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of September 24th, 2017, the podcast that beat level 256 of Pac-Man. This is your host, Shane Killian, and returning this week is Chris Hangartner. Welcome back, Chris.
Hello.
One quick announcement, just reminding people we don't do the podcast on the 5th weekend of the month, and that's next weekend, so the podcast will be back in 2 weeks. I'll probably do like I did last time and use this as an opportunity to do another Patreon hangout. Those are always public to view, but to people who donate via Patreon, they get to join us on voice and cam. So keep an eye out for that. All right, let's discalciate the news of the bogus. And we start off with a cautionary tale sent to me via the website by Felix Zachter. So we've talked about cryptocurrencies from time to time, and it's important to understand how even simple mistakes can put you at risk, and I mean that's true with regular banking too as well as cryptos, but in this case, a man lost over $300,000 worth of Ethereum. And this isn't anything Ethereum did wrong in their design. Strong crypto is pretty much uncrackable nowadays. But as Adi Shamir keeps saying, encryption is bypassed, not cracked. Encryption depends on keeping secret that private key that unlocks access to the cryptocurrency. But if a hacker steals that, he's got the goods. So this user used the Jaxx wallet, which I use that, but it's important to understand that's what's called a hot wallet, which means that the wallet is installed on a computer, it's running, it's connected to the internet. So if the hacker can get into the machine somehow, he can conceivably get the private key. So if you have a large amount of money like that, it's recommended to put it in a cold wallet, which means the encryption keys aren't online, they aren't even stored on your computer, they're on a USB key or printed out on a paper wallet and kept somewhere secure. Now keep in mind, if you lose that, you lose access to the funds, so even if you have a secure place in your home where you keep it, what if there's a fire, so you might want another copy somewhere else, like the safety deposit box at your bank. And a lot of people say even have multiple wallets, so that in case one gets compromised, you're not losing all your funds.
So, more technical babble to me. Sorry.
Well, just keep in mind that if it's running on your computer, hackers and malware can get it. They have access to everything you have access to.
Sadly, yes.
But if you have it on something that's not even hooked up to your computer or even printed out on a piece of paper, they can't do that. So, that was his first mistake. His second was putting it on a rooted Android phone. Now, ordinarily, Android apps have this special little secure area where they can put their files and no other app can access it. So even if you did get malware on your Android device, they wouldn't be able to go into that special little area and get your keys. Unless it's rooted. Rooting the phone opens up all of that. So, I mean, it becomes like pretty much a standard Windows machine where every app has access to all of the files. And there are a lot of benefits of doing that to a phone, but do not put any secure apps on a phone that you've rooted. Same with an iPhone that you've jailbroken. And really, if you're worried about whether or not that's done to your phone, as long as you bought it new or refurbished, I mean, you have to go through a lot of steps to make this happen. It isn't something you can do accidentally. So, as long as you're using an Android or iOS device, then it should be good because it should have that nice little walled off area to put everything. And the other thing has to do with the way the Jaxx wallet works. And this is something that's a bit controversial. It's actually clever. They have a backup phrase that you can print out and store somewhere, and it's just a whole bunch of like random words. And what that allows you to do is, if you lose your Jaxx wallet, as long as you have that phrase, you can get everything back. It's one phrase that gets you all of your cryptos, Bitcoin, Dash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Zcash, all of the ones that are stored in your Jaxx wallet. And that's really good. But it also means that if a hacker gets a hold of this backup phrase, he can get anything in your wallet. So it's important to secure that. And Some experts have criticized Jax for storing the backup phrase without encrypting it, which means that anyone who can get to those Jax wallet files can get the backup phrase even if Jax isn't running at the time. So as long as they can just get to those files, they can do it. And that's no problem if it's nicely sandboxed, like I was just talking about with Android. But if your device is rooted, or if you're using an OS like Windows that doesn't do that, then basically anyone who can get access to your machine can get your backup phrase and get all of your cryptos in your Jax wallet.
I don't use cryptocurrency, so this is a lot of... So sorry if I sound like I'm ignoring you, it's just that a lot of this is flying over my head.
That's okay. Just keep in mind, this is always that trade-off between security and usability.
Yeah,
They could really put the screws on all of this and really try and make sure that hackers don't get it, but it will be so difficult for you to use. Jax CTO EᴛՂᴇᴜᴍ explains, quote, and I'm sure I mangled that name, sorry, but there will always be trade-offs between user experience, portability, and security, and we believe we've struck a great balance. Since 2013, over 750,000 Jax and our former company CryptoKit wallets have been created. Never have funds been lost on any of our production versions due to an issue on our end. We stand by that amazing record. The main point with all of this is anytime you're doing anything like that, whether it's a cryptocurrency or whether you're just encrypting your files to be secure or anything like that, you need to understand what's going on. In this case, you need to understand what kind of wallet you're using and what are the things you might do that could weaken its security. So, like I said, if he had just kept it on a non-rooted phone and hadn't put it on a rooted device, he probably would have been fine. So
basically you're saying if he would have just used, pretty common sense, he probably,
Yeah, just think through the consequences of what you're doing, especially if you're going to do something big like root your phone or something like that.
And the thing is, the fact that all this is flying over my head, that's the reason why, even though I support things like Bitcoin, I personally don't use them because I would lose everything within a month.
It really needs to get to the point where someone who is not technically savvy at all can use it. But like we're seeing, there are all these things that you have to understand that you're going to have to understand more and more in the modern digital age. And it's just not all quite as accessible to everybody. I mean, we're seeing that now. We're going to talk a little later about, the Equifax breach, and how that happened with basically all our other stuff too. This is the world we're living in, and cryptos are great and they have a lot of security, but they're still prone to these same kinds of mistakes. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. Do you have children or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. So we've talked about the W3C's horrible idea of making DRM a web standard, that's digital rights management, where they try to make sure that if you're watching a movie on Netflix that you can't save a copy and give it to other people.
I actually saw a video that's talking about a possible Hollywood boom, and I think, it would really save the movie industry, but of course, obviously, the Hollywood Mongols aren't going to accept it. You got to get rid of the copyright and allow more competition, and, that's the reason why Hollywood is producing these lackluster movies that, even though on paper are making a lot of money, most people either hate the movie or they're just like, meh, it's okay, it's because there's no competition.
But when you look at what made Hollywood big to begin with, it's because they went out there to compete with all the big movie studios in New York, mostly because the New York movie studios were so anti-Semitic. So a bunch of Jews went out and made Hollywood. That's why there are so many Jewish Hollywood companies out there. And they just started doing things better and started competing with the New York.
Yeah, because I have some friends who are artists, and they're normally pretty smart people, but the problem I have the most is convincing them why you don't need copyright, and if anything, copyright is a detriment to artistic creativity.
I think we need to change the way we think about it.
Yeah.
Because the way we think about it now is, I did this thing, I wrote this song or whatever, pay me for it, when it should be, I wrote this song, pay me so I can do another one. So the EFF offered a compromise, which was absolutely reasonable, and which sadly was ultimately rejected. Cory Doctorow lets us know about it in an open letter, quote, "When it became clear following our formal objection that the W3C's largest corporate members and leadership were wedded to this project despite strong discontent from within the W3C membership and staff, their most important partners, and other supporters of the open web, we proposed a compromise. We agreed to stand down regarding the EME standard, provided that the W3C extend its existing IPR policies to deter members from using DRM in connection with the EME, such as Section 1201 of the U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act or European national implementations of Article 6 of the EUCD, except in combination with another cause of action." In other words, they would agree to only pursue civil claims for breaking DRM when it's used to actually infringe a copyrighted work, and not when it's done by, for example, security researchers or people trying to make works more accessible to the disabled. That's all they were wanting. There's like, you can keep your copyright, you can keep your IP, you can go after infringers, just let us do this.
Again, no wonder Hollywood's going through an economic turmoil right now. It's because, for some reason, they are just against everything that'll make their products more accessible to people.
Quote, "This covenant would allow the W3C's large corporate members to enforce their copyrights. Indeed, it kept intact every legal right to which entertainment companies, DRM vendors, and their business partners can otherwise lay claim. The compromise merely restricted their ability to use the W3C's DRM to shut down legitimate activities like research and modifications that required circumvention of DRM. It would signal to the world that the W3C wanted to make a difference in how DRM was enforced, that it would use its authority to draw a line between the acceptability of DRM as an optional technology as opposed to an excuse to undermine legitimate research and innovation."
But of course, this is Hollywood we're talking about. To them, innovation doesn't mean anything.
Yep, they just want to keep doing what they're doing and making the money they're making, and they don't want things to change.
Yeah, and they fail to realize that if they keep doing what they're doing, they're not going to make any more money.
The leadership of the W3C rejected this compromise as the coalition in support of the DRM compromise grew and grew, and the large corporate members continued to reject any meaningful compromise. The W3C leadership persisted in treating EME as a topic that could be decided by one side of the debate. In essence, a core of EME proponents was able to impose its will on the consortium over a sizable group of objectors and every person who uses the web. The director, that's Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the web, decided to personally overwrite every single objection raised by the members. Today, the W3C bequeaths a legally unauditable attack surface to browsers used by billions of people. They give media companies the power to sue or intimidate away those who might repurpose video for people with disabilities. They side against the archivists who are scrambling to preserve the public record of our era. The W3C process has been abused by companies that made their fortunes by upsetting the established order, and now, thanks to EME, they'll be able to ensure no one ever subjects them to the same innovative pressures. We'll keep fighting to keep the web free and open. We'll keep suing the U.S. government to overturn the laws that make DRM so toxic. And we'll keep bringing that fight to the world's legislatures that are being misled by the U.S. Trade Representative to instigate local equivalents to America's legal mistakes. We will defend those who are put in harm's way for blowing the whistle on defects in EME implementations. It is a tragedy that we will be doing that without our friends at the W3C, and with the world believing that the pioneers and creators of the web no longer care about these matters. Effective today, EFF is resigning from the W3C.
Like I said, Hollywood, when you're sitting in a ghost town that was once Hollywood because the movie industry finally collapses, don't come crying to us.
I'm not really worried about Hollywood. I'm worried about the W3C, because for the first time, we have a decisive step made against an open web, and it's laughable that the W3C still claims to be the most transparent body in the world after a secret vote for big government and big corporations over web users. And if anyone wants more information and better commentary that I can give on the matter from someone who actually saw a lot of it unfold himself, I'm linking to a couple of videos from Brian Lunduke. For myself, I don't even want to hear about net neutrality until all of this DRM crap is relegated to the waste bin of horrible ideas where it belongs.
Yeah.
Because that's completely what they're going against. They cry net neutrality except for our stuff. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. Well, it's always nice to know that it's not just a handful of groups like the EFF standing up for free speech. A group of Bikini Baristas, in other words, servers who serve food or drinks with bare shoulders, thighs, and midriffs, filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Everett, Washington, over the right to privacy, free expression, due process, and equal protection. The reason why is the city passed regulations that have nothing to do with food safety or public health, but because they say it's lewd to show a shoulder or a midriff. When did I wake up back in Victorian times?
What I find laughable is that we're seeing this, with the radical left now, it just seems like the conservative right and the radical left, like they just completely swapped sides because, I'm hearing, all this ranting by a lot of SJW saying, oh, women shouldn't be exposing themselves because it turns them into sex objects, and I'm just thinking, I thought you guys were supposed to be progressives. I thought you were supposed to hate the religious right,
Horseshoe theory, they both become the same thing.
Yep, they have different reasons, but the belief is still the same.
And the thing is, they're not even complaining about them showing butts, just 3 inches below the butt.
Yeah.
Violations can lead to owners being fined, as well as being required to register for a special license, which the city can deny, and a 5-year probation. Subsequent violations can result in their food service license being revoked. The owners themselves individually can also receive a $5,000 fine and a year in jail.
And how is this supposed to improve the American economy again? I ain't gonna lie, I do not understand why people are so terrified about sex. What's so taboo about sex? It's just part of human nature.
I think it's just about control. Look at Japan or any country like that. The more repressive a country is, the more interesting the porn is.
Yeah.
Who else but Japan would have come up with tentacle monster rape?
Yep.
So, it's not the people, it's the people in power trying to repress them and say, oh, sex is bad, doing all the... Well, people do porn all the time. It's usually one of the first things they do with a new technology.
Yeah.
No, it's about control. According to Assistant City Attorney Ramsey Raymond, quote, some of these stands had the characteristics of a poorly run strip club, and trying to enforce standards under the law was simply ineffective. As it should be. And guess what? He also said the dressing like that was exploitation. Authoritarians always love that word. It doesn't mean anything, but it sounds bad.
Oh, yeah. Just like calling someone a fascist or a Nazi, it has no meaning behind it because you don't really know what it is.
Yeah, those words did have meanings once upon a time, but now...
Yeah. I remember there's a good quote from George Orwell where he flat out said, he no longer took the word fascist seriously because he says, I've heard it used to describe everything from corrupt politicians to fox hunters. He was implementing Godwin's law before Godwin. They're more focused on their agenda and not on intellectual discussion, so I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah, but I kind of doubt these people have read Orwell.
Yeah.
The city council said, quote, the minimalistic nature of the clothing lends itself to criminal conduct. Citation needed, I think. They also said that it had, quote, adverse impacts upon minors. Won't someone think of the children? I mean, really, have these people never been to a beach?
Yeah, I see more lewd stuff at a beach than I do at a Hooters. People look at Hooters and like, oh my god, look how inappropriate they are at Hooters.
Well, and at Hooters, aren't they wearing, like, polo shirts?
Yeah, they're just wearing short shirts and skirts. When I was in high school, most of the girls dressed like that.
And understand, there is no requirement under any of these regulations that any lewd conduct actually take place. It's just about what they're wearing. Barista Natalie Bjork said, quote, this is about women's rights. Well, actually, it's about everybody's rights, but her fellow barista Liberty Ziska said, quote, I choose my own clothing at work, and for me, the message I send is freedom. Amelia Powell said, quote, it's our bodies and our choice. Susan Martin said, quote, who the hell does it hurt if a young, good-looking girl serves a cup of coffee while wearing a bikini? What century are we living in now? There's nothing illegal about wearing a bikini. What's next? A dress code at the beach or on the river?
It's those really, really fat people who think that if you're beautiful, you're body shaming them.
We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And now it's time to plant a flag on this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And this week it goes to Google, and we've had quite a lot of stupid patent tricks on this show, but amazingly, Google of all people is actually trying to patent technology from the public domain. So what we're talking about is a lossless data compression method. Think of something like, a zip file. You put files in there and it crunches them down really low, but when you uncrunch them, you get bit for bit exactly the same file. This is one called Asymmetric Numeral Systems, or ANS, developed by Jarek Duda between 2006 and 2013, and he released it into the public domain. ANS and its variants TANS and RANS have been used in many different compression programs, including Apple's LZFSE, Facebook's Z-Standard, and many utilities, including WinRAR, and, yes, Google's Draco 3D. It's also being considered for use in the upcoming AV1 video codec, and it's great because it provides faster compression and decompression speeds without requiring a lot of computational power. In fact, it's 3 to 30 times faster than older compression algorithms. So, basically, Google wants to profit from all of that. They filed a patent application for it in the US and 100 other countries.
Yeah, and going back to the whole patent abuse, it's even more laughable because I remember reading somewhere that flat out says the patent office barely even reads half the patents are submitted to them. They don't even research to make sure, did someone else already patent it or is it in the public domain?
Yeah, they just rubber stamp it.
Yep.
Did you pay the money? Okay, here you go.
Yep.
Understand, Google didn't invent it. Google didn't use it first. The inventor placed it in the public domain. There's no way whatsoever that this patent application is valid, and Google was absolutely aware of Duda's work because he helped Google implement it for video file compression.
Oh, yep.
Fortunately, the International Search Authority has already sided with Duda and said that Google's application is not, quote, an inventive contribution over the prior art because it is no more than a straightforward application of known coding algorithms. Duda has tried reaching out to Google but said, quote, Google is not responding, probably currently rewriting the patent, showing its determination to reach this monopoly. And I mean, a lot of times, it's tough to blame the corporation for things like spurious patents since they have a fiduciary duty to make as much money as they legally can. They have that duty to their stockholders. The problem is the ridiculous patent and IP systems in all these countries.
Yep. I mean, a lot of people who love to hate on capitalism say, yeah, but look at all the monopolies and all these patents. That happens not because companies are greedy, it's because the government says, oh yeah, you can legally own this even if you didn't create it because a piece of paper says you do.
But in this case, it's really hard to understand why Google would want to try to patent something that's been in the public domain for 3 years. Maybe Google needs to revisit their advice to don't be evil, or maybe they just need enough business sense not to spend a lot of money attempting something that is almost certainly a hopeless case.
Yeah, Google's really fallen a lot from grace. Like, I remember when it was once considered the biggest pioneer in technology, and then it sold its soul.
At any rate, it's enough to get Google named this week's biggest Bogon emitter. If you're going to shop online, use our special links to shop at Amazon. Clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv, and you won't pay a penny more for your purchase. If you haven't used the mobile app in the last 12 months, or even at all, go to get5.bogosity.tv on your phone or tablet and get $5 off your order of $10 or more. Go to prime.bogosity.tv for a free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime and enjoy thousands of movies and TV episodes, borrow Kindle books, and get unlimited 2-day shipping for free. And speaking of Kindle, go to kindle.bogosity.tv for a 30-day free trial to Kindle Unlimited. Read over 1 million books and listen to thousands of audiobooks on any device. You can go to music.bogosity.tv and get a free 30-day trial of Amazon Music Unlimited with access to Amazon's entire library of 10 million songs, ad-free and with unlimited skips, and even download to listen offline. All great ways to help this podcast simply by shopping at Amazon. And now let's burn the CV of this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
So unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about the Equifax breach. They're a major credit reporting agency that collects information on pretty much everyone in the U.S. Let me summarize a couple of things for you. If you're wondering how you can tell whether or not your own personal information was compromised, it was. And if you want to know what you can do about it, not much. People have talked about doing credit freezes, which is a good idea, and of course be diligent and keep an eye on your credit card and bank accounts. But it's really the things you can't keep an eye on that are the problem. But I mean, if a website is compromised, you can change your password. If someone gets your credit card, your bank can issue a new one with a new number. Just try getting your social security number changed.
Yep.
There's a lot you have to do to be able to qualify, and you almost certainly don't. And social security numbers are very weak. There's only 900 million possible numbers they can use. If that sounds like a lot to you, remember that computers can do billions and even trillions of comparisons every second. Now, another big problem is just how many people have information stored at Equifax, regardless of whether or not they've ever dealt with the company directly. So in a situation like that, being the stewards of all of our data, you'd think, or at least hope, they'd hire the best of the best to secure their systems. Sorry, they didn't. They hired a woman named Susan Malden, who has a music degree. Okay, that in and of itself isn't bad. Lots of people have gotten computer engineering and even computer security certifications on their own after getting a degree in something else. I have an art degree, but I was able to get a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, Novell engineering degrees, security certifications, things like that. A lot of those have expired for me now, but the point is, I was able to do that and have that and a history that shows what I know. But she didn't do that either. There's not even anything on her LinkedIn profile that has anything to do with technology or security. It kind of makes you wonder if she can even spell IT. And she was put in charge of securing over 140 million highly sensitive records.
Oh yeah, and we all know how that'll churn out.
Yep. As a result, Equifax has apparently been engaging in a cover-up. Someone scrubbing all her information from the net. Her LinkedIn page was made private and her last name changed to just M. 2 YouTube interviews with her, as well as a podcast interview, have been taken down. Some of her stuff remains on the Internet Archive, but on the rest of the web, little remains. Malden has retired, as has Equifax's Chief Information Officer David Webb, but it doesn't look like either of them will suffer any personal accountability for what has got to comprise criminal negligence.
I think the thing is, they know she wasn't qualified. They probably just hired her because she was cheap.
I think it's just how managers think, well, you can learn the stuff you need to know as long as you can do management, and that's not how it works.
Of course, then again, I still partially blame the government for that because you have to get a Social Security.
Yeah.
I've actually heard that, when Social Security was first proposed, it was harshly criticized for that same purpose, saying, so basically, the government now has a permanent record of every single citizen. Isn't that a little, tyrannical?
And they did lobby the government to say, okay, the Social Security number is not an ID number. For the longest time, Social Security cards actually said not to be used as an ID number. Guess what? They don't say that anymore. That's what you need to keep in mind every time government says, but it'll just be limited to this, like going back to the net neutrality thing. Oh yeah, we'll consider them to be public utilities, but we'll only use it for this purpose. We won't do any of the other things about public utility. Yeah, they will. It'll be pretty much inevitable.
Yep, I think Milton Friedman once said there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
And sadly, the only thing we can really do about it is name Equifax this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this She Lacks Basic Computer Skills, like thinking that IT stands for Internet Things edition of the Bogosity Podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to send a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Chris Hangartner for joining me.
Thanks. Sorry if I wasn't too talkative today.
Remember, no podcast for 2 weeks. Until then, here's a quote from Eric S. Raymond. Being able to break security doesn't make you a hacker any more than being able to hotwire cars makes you an automotive engineer. The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial and Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
Want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again.